really particularly hard getting out of bed, 'cause everything's so hurty in the morning. But hey, at least I didn't wake up dead. And of course, that's the theme song that lets you know it is time for posturing for your day.
Is that my cue?
That's your cue. Come on in. She's cued. She's cued. Remember that? Rudolph the Red-Nosed
Said
Reindeer?
I'm cute.
This is very comfortable. I think I could just sit here for the entire show and just watch what it is that you have to do.
Great. It's getting a little crowded in here.
It is. Yes, well, we have Spiny Norman back with us, and we have Dinsdale, and
I'm Gina.
And this is Gina, and I'm Bill, and we've been talking about low back injuries, not just low back though, kind of the whole back, right? Tightness and stiffness in the back.
You can't really separate them. Usually where we feel it is in the low back. That's very common.
Yeah. And today, I guess we're going into more what the role that the legs have.
Yeah. So we've been looking at and exploring particular movements that involve moving the pelvis relative to the spine, which is something that many of us don't do in our culture either because we just don't have a need to do it. But also there's some inhibitions to doing that, as we were discovering. It's not a movement that is cool, I guess.
If you look up inhibitions in the dictionary, there's my picture.
So
well, let's get back into that.
Okay.
We're talking about moving the pelvis and cultural, how did you phrase it last night? Culturally challenging movements.
it's really challenging. Yeah.
And
So
is that the idea that
rotating-
it's okay for women to move a certain way, but not men? Is that the idea?
in general, but women too. Women, you don't see a lot of women doing this. I mean, at least in my experience of teaching some of my classes, it's hard for women to do it as well. Not just mechanically, but even just feeling okay with it in front of other people. So I know, it's definitely it's equal opportunity.
Yeah, I guess it's the same reason people don't like to get up on the dance floor. They feel
Yeah.
self-conscious. They're afraid everyone's looking at them.
Whatever it is,
yeah.
And which I'm no judgment here. Like I totally.
You're a
get
great
that.
dancer, but you're not afraid to move your hips. See, like that.
But I
You do
learned that. I worked through a lot of stuff
a
to
lot
get
of
there.
stuff. Well then, why don't you bring some stuff to us, and what do you got for us today?
Okay, so we're going to back off the undulation stuff and just come back to a much more common and simple, still a cultural inhibition in a way. I don't know exactly why, but it's been researched recently that even like we are one of the few cultures, and I guess I want to say like more modern, or not modern, civilized, developed nation, first world, whatever you want to call it, that as opposed to other cultures, bend at the waist rather than hinge at the hip. And
Bending at the waist instead of hinging at the hip. So in other words,
I don't know if you're going to get much hinging out of that one.
but we're bending at this part of the spine instead of where the femur comes in to the socket here. Instead of bending that way, we're bending this way.
Right. And so in studying both mechanically and anthropologically other cultures that seem to have little to no back pain, that's what they were finding was one of the common movements of moving their body closer to the floor was all happening at the hip.
Which would make sense. What would restrict that from happening? I guess if the hamstrings get tight?
Hamstrings getting tight. So which comes first? I don't know. Do the hamstrings get tight because we're not using them in that way over and over again? Or are they tight for some other reason and then we can't really hinge at the hip?
I would venture to say the chicken came first. That its lack of use is causing the muscles to grow shorter, which we've talked about, and it's also causing the fuzzies, the muscles to stick and to sort of glue together. I would say lack of doing it makes for lack of being able to do it.
Right.
If I had to put my money on it.
Sure, but there's other factors too. Like, I mean, we all grow up sitting in chairs more or less the same way. We grow up even from a very young age wearing shoes that have some elevation on it. And an elevation to a child's leg is huge. proportionally, and we start growing our calves, our calf muscle shorter, our hamstring shorter.
Okay.
Thing,
So what can we do about
So
that?
we're just going to do, well, first of all, being aware of this. So it's interesting for me. I mean, I do know this and have been working with it. Like when I'm in my classes and we do things that involve bending over, I often will be very aware of hinging at the hips. But when I'm just in my daily life and going to pick up stuff, I will still, do the curl over. And it's harder for me to remember to do that. It does feel weird. It feels still in the contrived stage. It doesn't feel natural. But
What do you have there?
this is a what we call a half dome, half cylinder. It's a prop, and one of the first exercises that we often learn in restorative movement is the calf stretch, which is both going to directly affect the calf muscle, but it's going to affect everything.
That's just styrofoam.
Upward. It's just styrofoam. Yeah, it's a half foam roller.
Okay.
You can also use for this, if you don't have one of these, you can use a rolled up towel. I would suggest rolling it up really tightly because you don't want to have your foot sink into it. It needs to be a firmer surface.
We're going to stand on this?
Yeah. So this is hard to see, isn't it?
No, we got it,
Okay.
I think.
So placing this on the floor, I'm going to take I'm going to start with my right foot, put the ball of my foot on the top of the dome. My heel stays on the floor. My other foot is back behind the other foot. And I'm making sure, too, to keep my feet in the same channel with my hips. So they're not too close together and they're not really spread apart.
Okay.
Spread apart.
So kind of like in Wuchi stance, the feet are pelvis width apart. Okay.
Right. So you're just going to start here. And making sure your knee is not bending, your leg is straight. And this may be enough of a stretch.
So what we're doing is stretching out the calves.
We're stretching the calf
and the
muscle right
hamstring.
now. But if your calves are really tight, you may feel it in the hamstring. But we're going to just start, focusing mostly on the calf muscle, particularly the upper, the gastroc, medius, the big. Yeah. See, I know a big word.
Big words.
He's not the only one that throws these
That's
around.
a $20 word right there, gastrocnemius.
So where do I pick up my money?
I'll get in touch with my people and we'll
Awesome.
work something out.
Okay, so we hang out here, and if this is, if it's a non-sensation, you can bring your other foot up a little bit more.
So as we step closer to the bolster, we get,
You're going to get a little
of a
bit more.
stretch.
Now we're not trying to tear the muscle end from end. We're just simply trying to get more of a sensation of gentle tension. What would you call that? I always call it like kissing up to the tension, but
Yeah, I call it taking up the slack
Taking
or
up
putting
the
it in the friction zone.
right.
Is that's a phrase I use a lot.
You do use that a lot.
Yeah, it comes from driving. If you've ever driven a clutch, a manual, when you push the clutch in, it's nothing, and then the clutch starts to engage.
Mm.
That's the friction zone.
Right.
And then after that, it's fully engaged. So I like to take the stretches. I can feel that in the calf. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
I like to take the stretch just to where you've taken up the slack. You're in the friction zone, but you're not feeling the burn yet.
Right.
I don't like the burn.
Right.
Burns are bad. Burns mean you're tearing. Don't do that. Oh, you're coming out past the
I can
bolster now.
I'm coming, yeah, as far as my own calf muscle will allow. So I don't, if this is too much, then, you need to find your own barrier.
Now, this could be something where people say, well, I don't have 20 minutes in the morning or half an hour in the morning to do this. But I'm guessing this would be better if you had it, maybe if you had a standing desk, or if you could work on your laptop. If you're doing work where you set it at the kitchen counter, you could put something like this on the floor and be getting your stretches in while you're
doing
working,
something else.
right?
Yeah, and this doesn't take 20 minutes. That's the cool thing. You only need to do it like 1 or 2 minutes on each side. You can take it in the bathroom when you're brushing your teeth or when you're washing your dishes. Like, it doesn't have to be a big, ordeal. And, more shorter bouts with more frequency is better than hanging out here for an hour anyway. So whenever you have, sometimes I'm just on the phone and I'll grab my thing and
So in other words,
stretch.
you'd rather see 1 minute, maybe 20 times a day, as opposed to 20 minutes all at once.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, see, when I'm back here, I don't feel the pull. But as soon as I come up alongside,
hmm
I can feel the muscles engage. This is an important thing too. I don't know if I shared, but we were talking about muscles growing themselves shorter. This is a chance for the muscles to grow themselves longer. So when you're stretching, you're not really stretching the material. You're actually adding more links to the chain. And the reason that this is important is if you learn to do it the right way. I think I shared with you, I had a client the other day.
Mm-hmm.
When I was working on them, I noticed a big scar right along the Achilles tendon. And I said, oh, what happened here? Oh, I was doing my stretches before a workout, and he actually detached the tendon from the calcaneus. He tore it off.
Yeah, and that's what we don't want you to do.
Yeah.
Just make a note.
But that's like working, that's where somebody's trying to get healthy, and they injure themselves trying to get healthy.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that
we
was
always
good.
think if little is good, more is better, and that is not exactly how the body works. So we're adding input. So the muscle lengthening you're talking about isn't all in one shot. It's a continual input of lengthening of the muscle, and then the muscle eventually will respond. But it has to be enough consistent input, and it has to be gentle, because likewise, if you're going too fast and too hard, the body's just going to react by pulling the other way.
Right.
So
It's going to guard itself.
It's going to guard
It's
itself.
gonna
Okay. So that's that part of that. Now we're going to work further up the chain, and this is always a little bit tricky when I'm in classes, but it's funny. Anyway, I'll just do it. So we're gonna come up now to the hamstrings. Now, usually when people are stretching their hamstrings, we just go over. So what we want to do is make sure that we're really focusing on the pelvis hinging relative to the femur, and that the back will stay neutral. So we do not want the hinging to happen here. He's looking at me.
Well, I'm just trying to think of like what that's going to feel like when I do it, because it's probably going to hurt.
Okay. So just again, like with a calf stretch, we're just doing a little bit at a time. So it helps if you can see yourself, because it's interesting how many people will bend over at the back and not realize that they're doing that. So if you want to be able to see that your upper back and your lower back are staying in the same plane, again, feet are pelvis width apart. And
so like they need to look into a mirror?
Yeah, looking
Okay.
into a mirror helps. So I'm looking at myself on the
Monitor.
monitor here. Okay, and I'm thinking about my pelvis is bending forward. My back is staying in line with my pelvis. And as I'm going down, so I don't fall over forward, I'm going to kick my tailbone back this way. And then come down to where I start to feel that tension again.
Now, are you coming down slowly because you're instructing us, or because this is how you would normally do it?
Both. I want to make sure that I'm going slow enough to where I notice if my back is going to start curling forward. Because as soon as you hit that barrier in the hamstring, you're going to want to keep doing the movement, but now you've bypassed the point of what you're trying to do. You can use something for support, but the goal is not to get your upper body as close to the floor as you can. The goal is to get your tailbone up, so you're pulling the attachment point of the hamstring further away from the knees.
Yeah, I can feel I immediately want to start.
Curling forward.
I want to go forward with my spine, but you're saying this is how twerking got started, right?
Whole nother conversation, yeah.
Sarah's not on, are you? If my daughter sees me twerking, that's a bad thing. Okay, now for me, right about there is as far as I can go. I can feel a pull going all the way down the back of my legs to my heel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I would stop.
That's where you would stop.
And
now when you're coming up.
Just let me say too, you're
Okay.
right, by deliberately lifting the sacrum, the tailbone.
Right.
And because I can cheat by bringing that in,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to bring it out.
Right.
That is enough of a stretch for me, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Should I be keeping my back sort of arched
Arched. No.
or just straight?
Yeah, just straight. Just relax, but not making sure that you're not curling over at the upper back.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially, here's where the attachment points of the hamstrings are, and we are just moving this whole structure while the legs are staying here. So you're moving this end point away from the attachment point on the other end behind the knees.
Okay.
And then maybe moving it back a little bit as you're lifting your tailbone.
Let's use this guy. Let's use Dinsdale. So you're saying that what we want to do, the bending should be happening like this.
Exactly.
Because the hamstrings, which run from actually below the knee and around the front of the knee, and then I don't know if they can see it, but the hamstrings come up this way and attach here to the sits bone.
Right.
So I don't know if you can notice this, but that way, when this is bending, let's bring it closer. When this is bending in relationship to the knee, that would stretch the hamstring.
Right. And so you can see like the back, this low back has nothing to do with that movement. So there's no need for that to bend more. And you have these big muscles back here that are designed in the glutes to support that kind of movement, where you have all of these little teeny muscles and ligaments there that are not meant to support the whole upper body.
Okay.
Not that they can't bend and that they shouldn't bend. They should, they're designed to do that. But when we're doing that over and over and over again, as we all know, it becomes an issue after a while.
Okay.
So, bending over to pick something up, but you can also do that while you're bending your knees. You can still get the same movement in, keeping the back neutral. Yeah.
So it's really a matter of the sits bone, which is down here kind of at the butt crease.
Mm-hmm.
Its relationship to the back of the knee is what we're after.
That's what you're trying to isolate.
Okay. Because I can bend over this way and that relationship stays exactly the same. So I might think I'm bending over and doing a hamstring.
Yeah, watch this. Look, isn't this great?
Right. And somebody might say, oh, you're really stretching your hamstrings, but you're actually bypassing them.
Right.
Interesting. All right.
All right. And one more piece of, and you can practice this too when you're sitting in a chair. And I always suggest to people, rather than using your lumbar support all the time, letting your lumbar support itself and sitting on the edge of the chair, pelvis is still what we call neutral. So my sit bones are on the chair. And then again, hinging at the hip.
Ah, okay.
Just practicing leaning forward. And can you get forward enough to put your elbows or your forearms on your knees, keeping your back in a neutral position?
Without curling the back.
Without
over.
curling the back and coming up.
That takes a lot of focus and body awareness.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of people don't have body awareness.
Right.
They don't know what they're doing. They think they're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So, it helps to, that's why a mirror is helpful. Not you're going to have one, you're not going to have a mirror in your office necessarily, but if you want to work on this, using a mirror and or somebody like me who's trained in this work to look at you and let you know what you're doing.
So you take people on, this is a shameless plug, but you take people on one-on-one, right? Like personal, and then you put them through these motions and movements.
Right.
Looking at the body marks to make sure that they're not cheating the stretch, but getting the most out of it.
Right. So, yeah, I help people see what they're doing so that they can say, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Right.
It bites when I go like this.
Yeah. Is that, yeah. I think that's a good amount to start with.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, so coming up too, leaning forward and then pushing up through the heels. So there you go. If you want to start working on being able to squat again too, that's a good way to start. Waking up those capabilities again.
And remember, when doing your stretches, always let patience have its work. It is so easy to want to rush it and to want to see improvement quickly and to want to gain ground fast. And that is the surest way to injure yourself. In the words of Dr. Cook, all my mistakes have been made in a hurry. So you want to do them slowly and be patient and give your body time to acclimate and to adapt. It may take a couple weeks before you notice some improvement, but once you notice the improvement, there's no going back. You see the benefit of it.
Mhm.
So that's it for our show today. Our thought for the day comes from Psalm 139. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. So have a great day, folks. Happy Easter to those of you celebrating this Sunday. And we will see you back Monday morning, 7:30 a.m. As always, be there or be square.